Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a chain reaction of events that is frankly pretty explosive. It literally started as a tech billionaire and a US congressman trading blows over agency budgets, but it morphed incredibly fast into this fiery, high-stakes debate over government transparency and ultimately the very origins of COVID-19. Let's just jump right in. All right, Section 1, the Musk versus Khanna feud. So, picture this. It's June 20th, 2026. Representative Khanna is on a podcast, and he is demanding immediate accountability for Elon Musk. Khanna actually made this incredibly serious allegation, claiming that Musk's push to dismantle USAID possibly sentenced, and this is a staggering number, 4.5 million children to death. He wanted Musk subpoenaed, put under oath, the whole 9 yards with a full congressional investigation. Now, as you might expect, Musk wasn't about to just take that sitting down. He immediately fired back on X, and he completely flipped the narrative. Instead of, defending the budget cuts, he amplified posts accusing USAID of something entirely different. He flat out stated that USAID funding was central to the creation of COVID-19. Okay, so how in the world did we get here? How does a highly political, kind of standard feud over agency budget cuts suddenly become this massive fight about the origins of a deadly pandemic? We're going to unpack exactly how these specific claims bridged that gap and created such a huge ripple effect.
Which brings us to Section 2, shifting to COVID origins.
During this whole online back and forth, Musk amplified a post that cited a very specific and frankly massive number, $53 million. The post claimed that USAID funneled this money to the EcoHealth Alliance, which allegedly then funded coronavirus gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And just as a quick refresher, gain of function essentially refers to experiments that can make a virus more transmissible or more deadly. Enter Republican Senator Rand Paul. He jumps right into the fray, echoing Musk's stance. Senator Paul explicitly argued that U.S. taxpayer dollars, channeled through USAID and the NIH, funded this specific research in Wuhan, and, crucially, he claimed that this research likely caused the pandemic. To really turn up the volume on Senator Paul's claims, Musk then shared a 3-year-old video clip. It showed Paul aggressively grilling USAID Administrator Samantha Power. And Musk topped this off with a highly charged caption, directly accusing USAID money of funding the research that, in his words, killed millions. So, to untangle these really heavy allegations, we have to travel back to that exact video. We've got to ask the core question that kicked off that incredibly tense Senate showdown 3 years prior. Did U.S. taxpayers actually fund this research in Wuhan? Let's dig into Section 3, the PREDICT program explained. Right at the absolute center of that Senate hearing is something called the PREDICT program. This was a past USAID initiative, and its whole focus was identifying and mitigating pandemic threats. But here's what's absolutely vital for the timeline. This program officially ended its operations in China in 2019, right when the first ripples of COVID-19 were starting. During the hearing, Senator Paul pointed out the sheer scale of this operation, noting it had a $200 million price tag. Now, naturally, when you're talking about $200 million, lawmakers are going to have some intense questions about exactly where every single dollar of that money went. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of Senator Paul's concern. He cited findings from the Government Accountability Office, or the GAO. According to him, the GAO found that grants went directly to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But even more than that, he claims subawards of NIH and USAID money made their way to the Academy of Military Medical Sciences in China, essentially merging civil and military research concerns. When you map out the timeline, you really start to see why the questions in that Senate chamber got so heated. Senator Paul highlighted a specific 2018 proposal from Wuhan asking for money to create a SARS-like virus with a very specific mutation. This happens just before the PREDICT program ends in China in 2019, the exact same year the pandemic begins. Fast forward to June 2026, and it's this very timeline fueling the clash between Representative Khanna and Elon Musk. That leads us right into Section 4, the Senate hearing showdown. This hearing was incredibly tense right out of the gate. Senator Paul demanded a direct, simple yes or no answer. Did USAID fund coronavirus research in Wuhan? Administrator Power, on the other hand, strictly denied funding gain-of-function research specifically, so right away the stage is totally set for a major clash over definitions and the actual scope of the research. But Paul kept pressing. He pointedly argued that the 2018 funding proposal from Wuhan was to create a virus with a furin cleavage site. Now, that's a specific biological feature on the virus's spike protein that basically makes it incredibly efficient at infecting human cells. He demanded to know if the government funded or denied any proposals like that. To remind the administrator of exactly what was at stake, Paul emphasized one devastating number: 20 million. 20 million people globally died from the virus. He used that staggering toll as the ultimate justification for why the agency needed to hand over all unclassified scientific grant data immediately. Which brings us to Section 5, the battle for documents. Visibly frustrated by what he was calling agency stonewalling, Paul noted that he, along with ranking member Risch and 25 other Republican senators, had actually signed a formal letter. They were demanding unclassified scientific grant records. He emphasized, we aren't asking for classified state secrets here, just basic grant data to see what taxpayers actually funded. Now, what's truly wild here is the total contradiction between these two officials. It's night and day. On one side, you have Senator Paul claiming he's received absolute zero, not one scrap of paper, despite months of requests. On the other side, Administrator Power insists USAID has submitted hundreds and hundreds of pages to the proper committees, saying she's just following long-standing government practice. This resulted in a direct, highly heated clash over basic honesty and administrative procedure. Paul literally accused Power of being dishonest right there on the record. Meanwhile, Power stood her ground, saying the agency was providing extensive documentation and all the paperwork the commission requested. Honestly, neither side backed down an inch. Senator Paul wrapped up his questioning with a pretty stark warning. He argued that when an agency gives what he called a non-response, it just breeds deep public suspicion. He stressed that, regardless of who is in charge, stonewalling info about a global pandemic makes the public think the government is hiding something. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we're left with a really provocative question. When bureaucratic procedure and long-standing protocol clash directly with congressional oversight during a global crisis, where does true transparency actually lie? I mean, if our leaders can't even agree on whether documents exist or have been handed over, how can the public ever truly trust the process? Thanks for exploring these complex layers with us today. Keep asking questions, and we'll catch you next time.